and cutting the pieces that we need out of that pastry block to get the right quantity of items. So we're aiming for 6 croissant, 6 savoury pastries. I'm not going to call it croissant yet. We'll see what we get out of this block. Then 6 Danish, 6 chocolate croissant, right? So that's a minimum requirement, and we might get a few more pieces out of it as we do, and as I would hope for an assessment. But let's see how we go. I've rolled the block already. I rolled it 4 millimeters, but I had to roll it through a couple of times. Now, remember the block that I'm demonstrating with was made today, so it's got a lot more resistance. You know, this thing about those 2 proteins, the ability to stretch and the ability to return, this tenacity. So those 2 proteins, when we join them together and develop them, that makes gluten, and gluten then has this unique performance in doughs, is it has the ability to stretch and return. So at the moment, because the pastry dough has had really not enough time to rest, it is shrinking, yeah, as I pin it out. So I don't expect to have that issue tomorrow. Just going to make this, just so you can see the bench. Make sure you give it a light dust of flour. And then relax. Then I'm going to pillow air underneath the pastry. Then I'm going to make sure I've got that 105 centimeters from the straightest point. So I'm going to lose probably this part here, this end part, because I need a straight 60. Then I've got exactly, well, just a little bit under actually. I've definitely got the 440 wide. I've actually got about 42. I'm just going to extend that a little bit, not much. I'm just going to extend it a bit. Wrong pin. Now I'm going to start preparing these pieces. So keep your scrap flat aside. And probably won't see in on this camera, but you can actually see the fine layers of fat and dough. This time the dough is active, right? So we've got sort of an active pastry. So we've got 2436. So I'm going to trim. I'm going to, and the pastry will shrink, right, as I'm cutting it. So if I need exactly 36, so that's 24 for the croissant and 12 for the Danish and chocolate croissant, I'm going to go a little bit more because it will shrink. So I'm going to go to 36, so I'm going to go 38. Just going to trim that now. Do a few of those along the way. 2 centimeters. So I'm just going to now trim. Now I don't need to trim the bottom because as I cut the bottom pieces, I'll get those out. So now I'm going to mark out the 12 centimeters for the croissants. 12, 24. Six. 6, 12. And I'll do the same. Now I'll go to the 24 centimeters. 24 centimeters. I'll do the same on this side. Nearly made a mistake. But what I really want to do is get at least 12 croissant. Make sure you use a really sharp knife for this. I want to expose all of the sides. Stack them up. And what I'll do is while I'm working on the Danish, I want to keep everything cold. I need to place these. I'm going to come first before I do that. I've got nothing there. So I'm going to put the 12 croissant. And I'll use the plastic so it doesn't get a skin. Then we will be using the prover, which will be set at 0 to keep that pastry cold. Now I'm going to do the Danish. Now it says there 12 centimeters, but we're going to do 10 by 10. I'll make that adjustment now. So I want 6 Danish, 10 by 10. Same on the other side, so they're nice and square. I'm just marking them out. Stack them up. Try not to misshape them as you're picking them up. Try and keep them square. And then the chocolate croissant. Now, the best way to make a judgment with the chocolate croissant is by measuring the size of your chocolate sticks. So these are exactly 8 centimeters. So essentially I want 8 centimeters in width, but I want the 12 centimeters in length. That'll give us enough pastry and it'll be comparative too with the croissant. So I'm going to measure the 8 centimeters. And now I'll get the 12. And I've got a little bit more pastry here, so I will get some extra chocolate croissants. The scrap nice and even. Don't mush it up and keep it cold. So I'll put that back into a plastic bag like we did for the puff. Now I've got a little bit of pastry here that I can probably get another Danish out of. Not two, but I can get one. So I'm going to keep this scrap, keep it flat. That way, when I go to roll it again, it stays like the lamination is, it's going the same way. Just going to cool this down, and this is what we get scrolls from. Get that machine. And now we've got, I'm going to demonstrate now the shapes. So now that these are out here, I'm going to do these first. Water, again, not enough to make it wet. I'm going to place down the first one. Down. About 3/4 of the way up. So over, pinch, over. And you can see that how robotic or repetitive this type of work is. I don't finish one off. I do all of the first step and I'll do all of the second step. Over, over, and this is exactly the numbers and the style that you want to do. So chocolate stick in right on the join. These here because I need a chocolate stick for those. So then you're going to roll it over and then the seam will sit at the bottom. It's really critical when we place them on the tray that the seam remains in the middle. Now, I need 6, right? I definitely need 6 for the assessment, so I'm just going to take one off. And I'll just roll these over. So I've got here. So what's important? Seam, there's the seam at the bottom. You've got to make sure that otherwise they will unroll. You've got to make sure that that seam is sitting under pressure. And use the whole tray. Up to the end. So I've got my chocolate croissant. Now the Danish pastry. And what we would normally do, and what we will be doing, is we probably would have made a custard by now, and it gets a small ball of custard in the middle, and then it's over. Now push in to make sure that that part is retarded, right? Meaning I've broken the lamination in the back because I want to have a piece in the middle where I'm placing fruit, and I don't want it to expand. So I really make sure that I push that down and it's all joined. So right in the middle, push it down, connect, push down. So connect. And then leave this one off for now. If I need really accurate numbers on the tray, because we'll be doing this in the reinforced numbers. 6. And the spacing is really important. Even though these products are different, the dough piece size is pretty consistent. And I definitely want to use the full tray. Because we're using the fan force oven, I really don't want this paper flicking around and deforming the pastry. So you can see I've used the full tray, right? So I've used the full perimeter of the tray. And they're spaced evenly apart so that when they expand, they're not going to touch. So this now is going to go into the proof. I've got my croissant. So I've got these squares, and now I'm going to make a cut, and I use a little bit of pressure. So I'm holding so the pastry is not going to move around when I do this. Sharp knife, using the blade corner to corner. And cut all my pastry corner to corner. And then I'm just going to put a small cut in the middle to help extend that first part of the rocking process. And then I've got then stacks of croissant already cut and ready to shape. It's going to work on 3 at a time. And just a bit of a water spray. Now, going to now stretch this out. So I'm going to just stretch that out. And then I'm going to, with my hand, and I've got my thumb in the center. So my hand's sitting at the back. And on the bench, I'm going to use my thumb while the fingers at the back are supporting it to extend that pastry. You can sort of see, makes a little bit of a channel. I don't do it enough to damage the layers, but I definitely do it enough to extend it out. And I'm just going to use a little bit more pressure to connect it, so that when I'm doing the rolling, that it's not going to move around. So stretch, extend, stretch, So now I'm going to, I'm not rolling towards, I'm sort of rolling it out. Rolling it out, and I'm not now putting a lot of pressure. Roll it, give it a little bit of a stretch to get those 5 steps. So rolling those parts out. Out. Just rolling it up. Not too much pressure because I don't want the croissant to break when it starts. It's already been stretched a fair bit. So now stretch, extend, connect, stretch, stretch, connect, connect, rolling out. And again, the same with the seam, not the seam, but that last tag that sits at the bottom. Right, so it doesn't unroll in the proof. These are our plain croissant. So position them. I really want to use again whole tray, just so that paper doesn't flap around too much. And if I get any extra, I'll just run them in the middle. Now the cheese and bacon, so we have to do a savoury version as well. So not too much spilling on these ones because we don't want to interrupt that lamination on the inside, right? Now cheese has also, a water content or liquid content, and that will also create more steam, and therefore it'll deform or influence the internal structure of the croissant. I'll just put a little bit on the inside because I will put way more on the top. Yeah, roll from the sides, stretch. Roll long. Again, extend, connect, stretch. Did I get it on the first one? I'll just stretch it again. You see how important that last bit is where I just connect it to the bench, right? So it doesn't shrink back. This, not much, just a small amount. Try again. Also placing him, I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. You can see I'm going to stagger them so I can secure the sheet of paper on the corner there, and just a little bit more security in the middle. All right, just so I know that there's a difference between these and the plain croissants, just with everything a spray. Just going to line everything up so you can see. Try something different again. See what we get the best results from. A little bit of cheese on these ones, just so I know that these are savoury croissants. Not a lot, just a small amount. Chocolate croissants. Danish. And they will go into the proof. It'll probably take a good, maybe an hour and a half. We want to do these really slow and careful because, you know, you acknowledge that we've got a very fine butter sheet on the inside, and 35 degrees potentially could start to melt the butter, and we don't want that. We don't want to melt any butter until it's in the oven and it's expanded and those layers fry. If we melt any butter at this stage, it's very problematic for the expansion of the Danish croissant pastry. So you can see the elements that we need for the assessment: 6 savoury croissants, 6 plain croissants, 6 Danish, and I've got probably a little bit more than I need. In fact, potentially, so again, I'm just using, again, giving a little bit more distance, got a little bit more security there. I've got enough there for another chocolate croissant. I might put that one there. Great. There's nothing really more to see. You'll see the last part tomorrow, which is the final part before we go into the oven, and then we'll go from there.